Here we go. We are streaming on YouTube, so everybody who's coming on YouTube, it's not a lot yet, but tonight we are talking about whiskey pricing. I'm going to go through and I'm going to start streaming on. Here we go. Go live. 3, 2, 1. We have gone live on Facebook. All right, everybody who's on Facebook, you know the drill. Most people who I'm going to share now that we're live on Facebook. Just hang in there. This is for an 8 o'clock podcast is when I'm supposed to start this, but I am going to share it to all the groups and all my friends. Let's just see what happens tonight, because this is all about whiskey pricing. I don't have to share it to that. All right, we're going to be talking about whiskey pricing. We're going to get into the fine details on tonight's podcast, but we're going to start at 8, so if you're whatever, I'm going to be sharing to the groups to get a lot of people on, and this is why is whiskey priced the way it is. Everything has a reason, and you might not agree with it, you might agree with it, but it has a reason. So why priced? It's going to be Facebook Live, so there's going to be somewhat of an open conversation tonight. If you're joining in, give me a couple minutes right now to save to our Facebook groups. And there's going to be a lot. This subject is a hot subject as far as what people's opinion are, but I'm going to try and go into detail. Stuff that I've learned as far as why whiskey is priced the way it is. There's a lot of different reasons. And here, starting to share to the groups. Let's go. Welcome anybody on YouTube. I got also chatting. So if you're on YouTube, you can join in too. But this is why is whiskey priced the way it is? We are going to go into some detail, and I am just saving to all the different groups. Should have looked to see what's up. All right, we're on. I've got a lot of groups, folks. I'm just saving to the groups. We're going to get ready to start in about 4 minutes. So just hang in there while I do this and get going on Facebook. And then once we do that, we'll give a little bit of thing and get going on the podcast. Didn't want Dad's doing Booker, no. Here we go. Bourbon drinkers, junkies, bourbon, master distiller. Of course. Hey, everybody on podcasting, go someplace else. Rachel, I'm live. Just waiting to get going at 8 o'clock. Waiting to get going at 8 o'clock. The Bourbon Sunday Group, Kentucky Bourbon Festival. This is going to be a fun podcast tonight about. I've got a lot of information on why whiskey. There's so many different ways and reasons why certain whiskeys. You might not like the reason. And that is something that I definitely would agree. Um, but at the same time, uh, the reasons are the reason. You can't, and then there's reasons why we pay why we pay this amount of money. If you couldn't charge this you couldn't charge this amount of money if we weren't paying it. It's a free market, and the free market exists 100% based off of generation generations of marketing, how what my generation did, what people are, and how they go about doing it. There's all different reasons, and the whiskey market has been around for so many years, and there's so much information on advertising. There's so much information and what affects us and how we're affected. That it's been around for so long that they have figured out how to make this a fun hobby. So let me quick finish. I got to share to a few people in Messenger. I'll share directly, and then we'll get ready to get going on this. I will start in a couple minutes. I like to send it to people that are my friends directly, because sometimes they don't know that I'm going, and like even Greg Schneider tonight, I'd like him to chime in if he doesn't know. And then Dario, Nathan, my nephew, I always send it to him. It doesn't mean he's going to do it. Steve Pitzer, Carl Henley, Chris, Matt. Oh, Matt was in last time. Let's hope that he can jump in. I'm going to see Aaron Colleen for a Maker's Mart event in Bucyrus. I'm going to try and get up some of that information too. That was something that I wanted to bring up. And then Nash, Thompson, Randy. Randy's on vacation. Randy Prass, the president of Kentucky Bourbon Festival, catching a ton of fish. Very jealous, very, very jealous about what's been going on there. So I'm just going to send out a couple more. I think that is it. Oh, I'll send it out to Miles. Cassie. Oh, well, let's see if my daughter wants to. Anyways, I'll go back to Facebook right here. Yeah, we've got a good amount of people. We're going to get ready to get started with this podcast. Tonight, we're going to be talking about bourbon and whiskey. Bourbon, whiskey, what would you say? Pricing. Why the pricing exists. So what I'm going to do is get right into this for the podcast so I don't have to repeat myself with you guys. Looks like there's a pretty good crowd watching tonight. So there's going to be momentarily bout of silence. Just hang in there with me. And then you're going to hear our Kentucky Bourbon Festival. I mean, not Kentucky Bourbon Festival, our Scotchy Bourbon Boys theme song, and we'll get right on it. It's starting now. I'm going to start.
Drinking bourbon, sipping on some scotch. We get a little wild, but it's sure fun to watch. We love what we do, we're drinking every brew. Man, we talk some shit, but we're telling the truth. Yeah, we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, raisins in hell, making some noise. Yeah,
All right, welcome back to another Scotchy Bourbon Boys podcast. Podcast of the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. Wow, been doing this for so long. I find different ways to screw it up all the time. That was Kenny Fuller of the Luca Mariano Old Americana Band. Kenny did a great job. Thank you so much, Kenny. We'd like to thank him for that. That theme song once again is an awesome theme song. Tonight, we are on Facebook Live, which I'm going to be going over there and turning down the sound. I'm going to be monitoring it for comments, so if you want to chime in, anybody can chime in. And we got Brent, which Booker's batch? She's asking me about that. We'll get into that. This particular Booker's batch is last year's special release from the distillery. And I've got a really special Booker's down there. But tonight we're going to be talking pricing. But remember, www.scotchybourbonboys.com for all Scotchy Bourbon Boys things. We've got Glencairn's t-shirts and Scotchy Bourbon balls. Also, you could check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. And then also all the major podcast formats, Apple, Spotify, and then also iHeartRadio, plus any other one you could think about, Amazon, whatever. But whatever you do on your social media, on your social listening devices, remember, like, listen, comment, and leave good feedback for us. It helps us out here. I'm Tiny of the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. Tonight, I'm here to talk about a subject. I could tell already everybody's out there. We got a lot of people out there. Randy, oh right, it's like Randy's there, Greg Schneider's here. We also have Cleveland on the Rocks. Greg, we are definitely jealous of what Randy's been posting on. That's some fantastic fishing. He's up there at the border waters in Minnesota, between Minnesota and Canada. Half the time he's in Canada, half the time he's in Minnesota, and he's also up there having a good time. And I wish I was up there too, Greg. I really do. But tonight, I want to get to this right now, is that I want to talk about pricing. Because pricing, you get into those bourbon lines and you get into the bourbon, all the bourbon groups with you guys. And everybody has this notion about pricing, okay? So there's all different types of pricing. One, there's a standard pricing between different states, okay? So there is a free market states that exist, and then there are states like Ohio, which are control states. And the control states, basically, Ohio works, they work with the distilleries to purchase all the liquor that the liquor stores want. And when they distribute it to the liquor stores, they still own it. And they basically, the liquor store isn't putting millions and millions of dollars up front to sell liquor. Ohio has fronted them the liquor, and then because it's a control state, they sell it for MSRP, and then it's a reasonable price on the shelf for what is being suggested by the distiller. So it gives everybody in the state of Ohio to purchase it at a reasonable price. The liquor stores can't mark it up. They're not in charge of the pricing. The state of Ohio's in charge of the pricing. So what happens is when the liquor store sells the liquor, they get a commission off of each bottle that they sell. So this is how that works. Now, in other the liquor store, the distributor comes, they buy the liquor from the distributor, and they can sell it for what they want to sell it for. Free market keeps them close to MSRP on a lot of things, but when you're talking about the allocated bourbon, they could sell it for what they want. So a lot of times in a state of Kentucky or states that aren't controlled, you're paying secondary market prices at the liquor store, because that liquor store owner, in a lot of cases, has cut deals with the distributor for buying certain things. Certain products that sell consistently, they buy in bulk. They buy enough of that and put that on their shelves. The distributor has sold that, and then they sell them the allocated stuff based off of what they're buying. That doesn't work that way in the state of Ohio. The state of Ohio is buying it all. They're cutting the deals with the distributors or they're cutting the deals right with directly with the actual distilleries. So that part of it here in Ohio makes that it's a control state, but we're not paying these exorbitant secondary prices. But what it also does is that since it's being distributed now in the state of Ohio, one of the things always was that because it was a control state, you have to pay people to control it. So the taxes here, you pay more money for taxes in the state of Ohio. So what might be, $32, it's going to be $35 or $36 here because the taxes are higher here in the state of Ohio because you actually have a liquor board, OHLQ. And they're made up of people. They make sure everything goes right. They try and do the best. But for a long time in the state of Ohio, it was a negative thing because we just had this happen in the state of Oregon where they were so corrupt. They were keeping all the allocated liquor for the liquor people. The liquor board was keeping all those bottles, not distributing it to the people, and then selling it to their family and friends, buying it for MSRP and giving them a good deal. They weren't selling, there's all different things with the liquor industry or the spirits industry where throughout history, there's a lot of stuff that has gone on. There's no doubt that there's a lot of, it's human nature. It's alcohol and it's just all this, and it's being distributed, and it's being distributed on such a large amount that you can't get around some sort of corruption. You're just not going to get around it. You're dealing with human beings. So you've got the stuff here in Ohio, for instance, that's all here. We get it for MSRP. So we have Buffalo Trace. This is the first thing. Why in the state of Ohio, the regular market, when we're buying Weller Special Reserve, we're paying $22.99. When we could get a bottle of Colonel Taylor, small batch, it's $39.99. When you're talking about Buffalo Trace, you talk about Stag, $49.99 right off the shelf. But why does it go to a secondary market? And this is what happens. It goes to a secondary market because the people getting the buying up what's being released are the people. There's two different types of people. There's bourbon collectors that are willing to go out in the morning, wait in line with what they call flippers, people who buy alcohol professionally. And then what they do is then put it on the secondary market. Now, the secondary market is illegal. There's no doubt about it. The secondary market, there's nowhere that somebody without a liquor's license is allowed to sell liquor. Now, the secondary market exists. There's no doubt about it. These people are purchasing these bottles. Now, most places you go, they're limiting that you can't just buy it all up. They're limiting how much you can buy. It's like you could buy one bottle and while the line exists, so you could go back. Maybe sometimes you could get two, but these people who do the secondary market have 40 people at 40 different liquor stores buying it up so that they could put it on secondary in different states. Now, for instance, Weller 107 is a $49.99 bottle, but it sells for $2.25 in Pennsylvania on the secondary market. So all day long, if you can make it's $175 per bottle, you're going to do some things and you're going to pull it and put it to the secondary market. But now, what is the advantage of the secondary market? How does the secondary market, so many people rip on the secondary market. What are you paying for? One, the people who are buying it in Pennsylvania or New York or other states, they don't see it for $50 on the shelf. There's not even a chance to go wait in line for it. It's not being distributed there. So here in Ohio, if you want to go on a Saturday, there's a good chance you're going to come up with, you're going to come up with a bottle of Weller Red or what you're waiting in line for. I always look at it. I go to the lines to talk to all the people. I love the people. This is what I podcast for. This is why I'm out there and I love to talk. So I hand out cards to the podcast. I talk to them. And if I get there, I've waited in line all night long one time. I went in just to see what it's like to wait in my truck, sleep in my truck, wait all night. I've done that once. I've gone through, I realize what time, if I really want a bottle I haven't gotten in a long time, I got to be there by 3:30 in the morning. You got to do all the things. I don't participate in any secondary activity at all, never have, wasn't interested in it. I'm not in this to make money off of bourbon. I'm in this to share my experiences and podcasts with everybody. So when you get to that secondary market, so what's somebody that's buying on the secondary market? What are they doing? One, they don't have to go wait in line. Most people that are buying on secondary market, and then they have the disposable income to buy something that someone else bought for $50 and buy it for $225 because they have the money. It's worth it to them not to wake up at 3:30 in the morning, wait 3:30, wait 5.5 hours of their life that they could be sleeping, they could be working, making money themselves. So they're going to pay $50 for that bottle, but they're going to pay the person who picked that bottle up and then gets it to them $175 for the service. That's kind of how you got to look at secondary market. I don't care what anybody else says. You're not paying more for the whiskey, and the whiskey, you're paying more for somebody to get you the whiskey and then deliver it to you or meet you and get that whiskey to you. That's what you're paying secondary market for. It's 100%. It's not you're paying when someone says that's $225 on the secondary. No, it's $50 on the secondary, and you're paying $175 for that service for them to get you a bottle that you probably can't get to yourself. Weller Special Reserve, $29.99. You're right. You're talking about Stag, $55. All those things. Secondary is ridiculous. But once again, the reason why secondary is so ridiculous, and I'll tell you, 100%. Because in Pennsylvania, Weller is non-existent. So if you want Weller in Pennsylvania, not only does that guy pick it up for you, but he brings it to Pennsylvania. So think about that. He drives from Pennsylvania all the way to Ohio. Then he drives all the way back. You got gas, you got time, you got waiting in line, and getting it back and delivering it to you. How is that not worth $175? Now, not justifying it one way or another. I'm just explaining how the pricing works for secondary market. These prices of the whole reason why the secondary market exists, though, is where we're getting into the mucky. This is why does the secondary market exist? Well, it's not distributed in Pennsylvania, but it's distributed in Ohio. So what the heck's going to happen? People in Pennsylvania want it. They never see it. The only way to ever get it is either come to Ohio themselves or have somebody wait in line and bring it back to them. Either way, if you want to say it, if someone drives all the way from Pennsylvania and drives back, there's probably $70 at $3 a gallon worth of gas already. So there's your price right there. Now, it just comes down to what we all want. For instance, we're going to take Weller Special Reserve. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. It's an okay bourbon. It's $22.99 here in the state of Ohio when you get it. I could have bought it today. But where you can't get it in Pennsylvania or New York, it's selling for $125, $100 per bottle more than what it would here. It's not worth $125 as far as taste. I am telling you that 100%. I would rather drink a $25 bottle of Jim Beam, $18.99 bottle of Jim Beam, than have a Weller Special Reserve. I'm not saying it's bad, but it ain't worth more than what they're selling it for. But because some people can't have it, they want it. That brings me to my point. This is why I'm wearing a jersey tonight, a sports jersey, because you got to look at exactly why, what, and how sports teams work and how the whole marketing campaign. You got to think of Jim Beam as your favorite sports team if you like it. Buffalo Trace as your favorite sports team as you like it. The game is making bourbon. So the game costs money to make bourbon, just like they have to pay baseball players to play baseball, and that's why they charge you for what your ticket charge is. I mean, The game, if you're up in the box, way up in the seats, you can get seats, for $20, or you can sit in the box scores, and you sit in those luxury seats and you got everything pampered to you, but you pay for it. It's like the people in the luxury boxes pay an awful lot of money. The reason why they pay a lot, they see the same game someone sees in the upper deck. The game's not any different. The view's a little different. You're a little bit closer. You're right there. But your surroundings are completely different. And that's exactly how bourbon works. And I'm going to just say, the one thing with bourbon is you got your players, you got your teams, which is Jim Beam, Buffalo Trace, Heaven Hill. They're all making it, but they got to pay people to make it. One, you're paying master distillers, you're paying barrel people, you're paying hundreds of people to make these people are playing in the major leagues, all right? And then, not only that, when you're done, you got to put it in a barrel, you got to pay taxes on it, and you got to let it age. Now, there's all different reasons. Flavor, filtering, everything. There's reasons for why it's aging. But you got to let it sit for 6-7 years. How many people invest in time and effort 6-7 years advanced? Oh, and even some places where I'm going to show you 15 years advanced. What's that worth to you? So, now, once it's finished, they produce Jim Beam at $18.99. They produce a crap of it, a shit ton of it. Well, that's like upper deck. That's your upper deck going to a baseball game. You're sitting in the upper deck, reasonably priced. You get to see the game. You're still playing the game. It's decent bourbon. But at the same time, you can get it. There's not a limited amount of it. Okay? You could get it anytime you want. So what is the one thing that all of us, what is the one thing that all of us want? And this is my generation, and they do it into other generations. My generation's was this. This is third grade for me. This right here. This is a wacky package. This wacky package was a limited run in 1973 when I was in third grade. It was Windhax. Nobody could get it. Everybody who opened up a wacky package, every single one of them, when you got your wacky package and you're opening it up and you were calling around to all the beer depots in the state, in your area, and do you have wacky package? Do you have wacky package? And when you got your packages, when you opened it up, you wanted this one because this was the rare one. This is the one nobody had. If you had this, you were happy. Same thing. I'll go into something else. We want what we can't have. And we can have Jim Beam anytime we want. It's good whiskey. It'll compare up against a lot of really good whiskeys. So a lot of times, it's not what's in the bottle, it's how available it is, which determines the price. It's been aged 6-7 years. They make a lot of it. It's going to taste the same every time. You know what you're going to get. That's your upper deck, not box seats. It's just your upper deck regular seats. Now, as it goes along, you age it a little bit further. And you get into your Knob Creeks. And you get into your Bookers. Now, this particular Booker is last year's Booker. And this is something that I want to kind of show everybody. But this was the Booker. So the normal Bookers got released 4 times. You were able to get it, but there was a 5th release, and it was at the distillery. And Fred No, this was his pick. This is Fred's batch. And he signed it at the distillery. I was able to get it. Fred actually picked it up for me. And then Sandy and Fred let me purchase this particular bottle. I'm very proud of this bottle. I don't think this worth of this bottle is, I don't think I'm opening it, and it means everything to me. So not only does it have the worth of the original price, which I believe $149.99 at the distillery, It was a limited release. It wasn't distributed only. So now it's limited. And then it's signed by Fred and given to me by Fred. So not only does it have the value of a limited release, this is like sitting in season box seats. You get to go and view the game. Season box seats with the owner. So that's what's crazy about this. It's like this bottle has a value, is like if you're sitting there watching a baseball game with the owner of the baseball team, what the hell does that mean, right? Think about that. That value to you goes off the charts. Even though this value is up there, it's because it's a limited release, and when they limit the release, the price is going to go up because people want to pay for an experience that not a lot of other people get. So that's another reason why this was priced at $149 instead of the normal $100, $99.99, $89 that Booker's goes at, because it's a limited release. So once again, something, and release it so that only a certain amount of people can have it. So you have to pay. Now, when this hits secondary market, it goes crazy because someone waited in line and got the limited release, and there's not a lot out there. So that's even going to go higher on secondary market. It's signed by Fred, even, that says his, enjoy my pick, and then it's got his name. But then for me, the value goes to the point of insanity. And once again, this is like, I'll show you, when I was a kid, I was able to buy baseball cards, and I got 2 of these, and this is a Rickey Henderson rookie card. And this Rickey Henderson rookie card initially, straight off the bat, because he was such a great player, was worth a couple $100. And when I was a kid, that meant everything. Right now, in mint condition, it could be worth up to 20 grand. So I held on to it. It's my childhood, and I collected it. So there's that type of thing for baseball cards. Same thing. You're going to buy certain bourbons. I wouldn't pay more than $55 for it if I had 2 at my bar now to share with everyone who comes over. Wait. That's great. Hardly see it here in Illinois unless it's seconds at 140, which is a joke. Okay, so we're still talking about the Weller. Yes, I mean the Weller Special Reserve, and just you guys can keep talking amongst yourselves. It's crazy how that works. But so now we're looking at those limited releases. Now let's take this one step further, and we're talking about history release, Dusties, where you're going around trying to get Dusties. This here is from a time period, I believe it's a 1994 Booker's. It's got the box. It's got the different box. You can see highest grade. It's in a white box. Claremont, Kentucky. It's a Booker's. And this batch, if you're going to buy this batch, this is somebody, and it's once again, they're called Dusties. This is somebody who has decided that they wanted to pick up a couple back then, save them, or their grandpa saved them or whatever, and then they wanted to sell it at that point to you to taste something that has history. Once again, we're talking about this type of thing. This card here, Satchel Paige, 1953 Satchel Paige, his only Topps baseball card. He was the original black baseball players after Jackie Robinson. He was one of the best Negro League baseball players in the history. He sometimes even pitched 2 games of the doubleheader and would win both of them. An amazing guy. This card means everything to me. I've had it since I was 12 years old. Was able to get it, and it's I've got it preserved. And once again, it was $600 forever. COVID hit, went whatever, and right now that card in good condition sells for about 12 grand. So you're looking at the same thing that happens with whiskey. Now, baseball cards, what happens to them is they were on cardboard forever, and you buy them and they would mold, and they, moms would throw them away, and they just become rarer and rarer and rarer to then eventually, and they weren't printing that many to start off. So it's the same thing. Everything. We're in Florida. So, okay, cheers, Matt. Yeah, I will share that Bookers with you. But like anything, someone collected it, and if I was to sell that there as we go down the line, I'm not going to sell it for what it was worth when in 1953. It was in a pack that was 5 cents or 3 cents a pack. It's been kept and primed and whatever, and kept in a great place, and nobody can touch it, and nobody's handling it. It's behind plexiglass. The same thing with bourbon. Somebody kept it forever. You're going to sell that for what you can sell it for. It's a secondary market, but once again, it's a Dusty. Now, this is where Justin's House of Bourbon and then also Revival with Brad Bonds come in, because they go around, they have a liquor license to do, they buy Dusties. Now, there's rules on Dusties. You can't buy a certain amount, and you can, and most people, when the whiskey is old, you could buy this from an estate sale or whatever if you're buying in small amounts. But if you're going to do this for like with Brad, you need a license, and you need to do it right, and you need to distribute. And he's got that at Revival. Plus, he also brings really good pours to people in Dusties where you wouldn't be able to think you would ever be able to taste that type of a liquor. And he brings it to you at a reasonable price. There's no doubt about it. And we're going to be at Revival, I believe, a week from Friday, the 30th. So that's going to be a pretty cool podcast. So there you go. That's how the Dusties work. But once again, we all want what we can't have. If we can't have it, we want it. So when it comes to this right here, this was an expensive bottle. Now, not only is it limited, the bottle is limited, but not only is it limited, but it's packaged in the most coolest way. And this is the whole deal, folks. You're looking at the package. You're looking at the, you got the whole limited batch release right there. And you're going to pay for that. Now, do you drink that? Yes, bourbon's for drinking, I believe. I've had a couple pours of this so far. Not this bottle, and I just love it. I'm going to try and get Fred and Freddie to sign it, because they did this, and this is the lineage that I got to taste when I did a barrel pick with Freddie. So these bottles are special to me. So a lot of times when I'm getting these special bottles, I'm not thinking of drinking them so much, and I'm not saving them to sell them. They mean so much to me, because once you empty this bottle, it's empty and it's gone forever. So these are the kind of bottles that you're going to pay a little bit more for, and you're going to open these on special occasions, whatnot. This is the kind of thing. But once again, it's marketing. Why is this that much better? Is it $200 better than Jim Beam? I'm going to tell you straight up, the whiskey is no. But it's aged. It's put together specifically for a limited release. It's not like Jim Beam. You could get it all the time. You can't get this all the time. This comes out, this batch, once it's done, it's limited. And you got to pay for what you're paying for. Not only are you paying for them coming up with this, you're paying for the fact that you're going to be one to be able to drink this and you can own it. And then you're also paying for the extra packaging that they put it in. Beautiful wood box. Come on. So that all costs. Plus, the whiskey is aged. It has 15-year whiskey. So that whiskey that goes into Jim Beam at 6.7, you're doubling the amount of time it has to sit there. Plus how many taxes you're paying and everything like that. So that's why you pay for these high dollar things. You don't have to do it. But this is why it costs more. Because one, you want something that is unique and special, that there's only a certain amount. There's a lot of people in this world that aren't going to taste lineage, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, a father and son collaboration. I mean, you don't know how many of these they're even going to put out on this. It's just a really cool kind of thing. Now, we're going to get into right now. We're going to get into this. This is Buffalo Trace. This is small batch Taylor. Now, it's a $39.99 bottle. I've seen it across the thing. Secondary, it's going to cost you, I believe it can go for right around 100, 125. But they are distributing this more and more. But people wait in line for this. They'll wait in line for the single barrel. But then you get these really unique batches which they produce that are limited, and they name them different. The Tornado batch, the 18-year marriage, the Armagnac finish. So they're making they do their rye. They produce Sazerac rye and E.H. Taylor rye. Those are the only two ryes produced. So people want what they can't have. And Buffalo Trace, once again, in distribution, distributes in different places, and then it's redistributed across the country. They can't make enough to distribute everywhere. Now, they've just doubled their amount that they're making, and they've been increasing for a while. So this bottle has been on the shelf a little bit more. There used to be one case when you waited in line, and now there's two cases when you wait in line. So there's a lot of things, but the price, once again, if you pay more than $40 for this bottle, you are paying, again, for somebody to wait in line at 6 in the morning, pick it up for you, and deliver it to you. What's that worth? Most people with money, they would pay that in a second because they're probably making 5 times that amount of money while they're working, and they would rather make the money instead of waiting in line. So this is, once again, the secondary market for this type stuff is 100% driven by the fact of a service, not. So when you guys are all talking about the secondary market and it's so ridiculous, you're just saying it's ridiculous because you're not willing to pay somebody, and not that I'm condoning it, but it's not ridiculous. You're not willing to pay somebody to wait in line and go. Some people drive to Kentucky or they drive to the distillery and then bring it back for you. There's a service in there that you gotta basically 100% account for. Now, a lot of times you get gouging because of the fact that it's so rare and they did wait in line, they could gouge you. I don't agree with that at all. But there's a certain value to a service of somebody who's able, like your friend. If your friend goes to Florida and he calls you up and says, "Oh, I've got E.H. Taylor 18-year marriage. It's $100. I can get 2 bottles. Do you want one?" That's a fantasy, okay? But at the same time, you're like, "Yeah, pick that up for me." He drives it all the way back for you. Are you going to only pay him the $100, or are you going to give him a little something extra for the service? Now, if he's your best friend or whatever, he doesn't want extra. But just think about it. He drove to Florida and then brought it back to Ohio for you. It's probably about $200 in gas. So you got to just keep that in mind when somebody's picking something up for you and whatever, and you're talking about how you would never pay those prices on secondary because it's not worth it. Well, that means that you'd rather not. I love it. The people are like, "Well, I work full time." Well, Saturday mornings, Giant Eagle releases. They have, so there's always, they come up with creative ways to release these things. For instance, the gold, I know people who got the Blanton's Gold. I didn't get the Blanton's Gold from the lottery, but they do lotteries here in Ohio, which are totally fair. So, once again, you're paying the secondary, you're not paying secondary, you're paying MSRP. This one here, so this Knob Creek was, I believe, $119.99, and the 15-year was $99.99, and I believe this one was $129.99. Now, the reason why this is priced is it's 3 years older, and I got a chance to drink it compared to the 15. But once again, not only did you get the 18-year Knob Creek, which I extremely like, but you get this really, really cool display. This isn't cheap. And then when you're talking about 18 years, you're talking about they had to wait in 18 years in a rick house. Let's see, what was 18? We're talking about 2005. This was put in a barrel in 2005, and you had to wait all the way until, or 2004 actually, because you had to wait all the way till 2022. And this isn't a single barrel. These are batch barrels that they did to put it through on the I heard a lot of people, because this was 100 proof, it wasn't 122 proof. But when you think about it, if you're going to put something out like this, and you're doing it, and you can proof it down to 100, and it's still tasting delicious, and it's 18 years, maybe at 120 proof it was too oaky. So you got to trust the master distiller. But at the same time, by putting it out at 100 proof, there were more bottles so that you could actually participate, and it wasn't something that you couldn't get. That's another thing that you got to think about. Now, this here is an example of just a limited release from the Bardstown area. It's called the Bardstown Collection. It's log still, beautiful. But everybody who has this bottle, who gets this bottle, all the labels are the same, but they're done from, I believe, 5 distilleries participated. Heaven Hill, Log Still, what else? There was Log Still, Heaven Still. So this was part of the 2023 release. It was released and pretty much sold out in one day from all the different distilleries. I was lucky to be able to have someone pick one up for me and charge me just regular price. But this was an expensive bottle. It was $200. And it was at the different distilleries. It's an only release. But once again, you're paying for exclusivity on this case. This is straight exclusivity. The box is cool, but it's not so cool that you're paying for it. You're paying for this particular Bardstown 2023 collection, and you're paying for being able to get it because the only place it was released was to Bardstown, and it was, once it was gone, it was gone. So that's another reason why you pay the price that you're paying. You're paying for the right to drink something that nobody else can drink. I mean, that's really, is the whiskey in this bottle worth $200? I'm going to tell you, probably not, as far as compared to Log Still $100 bottle of Rattle and Snap, the 8-year. I mean, it just comes down to age. You got to pay for age. You got to pay for exclusivity, limited releases. This is really unique because this was from all the distilleries in the Bardstown, five or six of them. It was Jim Beam, there was Lux Row, there was Preservation, there was Log Still, and I think there was Heaven Hill. So those were 5 distilleries releasing all at once from the master distillers coming up for this special release. This is the second year that they did it. I think Randy was at the release party for both years. Now, I don't have it. I had an empty bottle up there, but this is courtesy of Super Nash. And if you can see this, anybody on Facebook or on YouTube, you can't, but I'm holding a Van Winkle 12-year in my hand. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is the ultimate of the ultimate of the ultimates of a whiskey that is $79 for the 10, $99 for the 12, $129 for the 15, and the 23 goes out at $200 a bottle from the distillery. Reasonably priced for the deliciousness of Pappy Van Winkle and its caramel flavor. This is a delicious whiskey. The 15 year is my favorite. The 12 is still pretty damn good. And when you're talking MSRP, you're talking for the 12, you're talking $99, which is the same as Booker's. And I really believe, but this is the one that is the Windex of the wacky packages. This is the bottle that everybody wants, the 12 and the 15. I mean, honestly, I swear to God, the 15, 20, and 23 labels on Pappy Van Winkle, I love those labels so much. I've never owned one. I want to own one. But this pricing gets crazy. And this isn't just, once again, it's not getting it. Because how it's distributed, it's distributed every year. Weller, this is the same mash bill as Weller. Once Weller goes over 12 years, we all know it's been aging. They take the best of the Weller. So you're looking at a 12-year Weller batch. Pappy Van Winkle is the stuff that Weller 12-year has been thrown out and didn't qualify for Pappy Van Winkle 12-year. So this particular brand has been marketed similar to it's what we all want and we can't have. It's masterful marketing. It's been done specific and it's cutting edge. You even have Julian Van Winkle going on and saying he doesn't like how the marketing goes because he wishes that every single bottle didn't get bought up, consumed, sold on secondary. I mean, they have, according to him, a hard time controlling this. They basically stopped secondary market selling on Facebook because everybody was selling this on Facebook early on, and that is an illegal thing. Secondary market is illegal, folks. I mean, you can't just go out there and advertise, and then Facebook 100% does not allow any secondary marketing, and I wouldn't condone it. Peppy won, lucked into a 15-year in the lottery last December. It's delicious. Yeah, John, I mean, the lottery here, I've not lucked once. I've known a lot of people. Whiskey, this past lottery with his family on the Blanton's Gold, just made out like he was a damn leprechaun. It was insane how much he was able to get. And me and my wife, we went to I think I went to 6. She went to 4 of the 6 that I went to that we entered into it. It was 100 different liquor stores. Each one got 50 bottles for the raffle. And he went to 3 of the liquor stores that we also went to. And my wife went to a 4th, but he went to 3 of them. Whiskey did, and he won at those, but we didn't win. So lotteries haven't been good to me, but that's okay. So anyways, when it comes to pricing, this one's a crazy one. This one sells for insane amounts for charity. It brings in tons of money. It's not one of the reasons why is what's in this bottle is really good. Now, I don't think it's worth what people will pay on secondary. Wake up here, grabbed it, the last one behind the glass, 120. Yeah, they sold it here for $119.99 MSRP, so that's not a bad price at all, John. He's talking about the Blanton's Gold. So once again, this here is because it's really good. The Van Winkles do a really good job. Buffalo Trace does a really good job. They've got it to the point, and I think it's spectacular. So if you could find something, in the unreasonable for something else, but you're willing to pay, most people will pay it. So you got that. Now, the last thing what I want to say is this. Blanton's, a single barrel. Elmer T. Lee dedicated this single barrel in 1984 to Albert Blanton. He was the master distiller, and he used to send Elmer T. Lee to a special part when he was entertaining guests to get whiskey from a barrel in his favorite rick house, which is the Tin Rick House. Everybody sees it on the property. They're in the process of making a lot more of them, but Blanton's comes from that particular warehouse. It's a single barrel, each meaning that all of it's barreled. Each barrel is poured into each batch of whatever it produces, and that's whatever it tastes like, that's what it comes out. So they pick out the barrels that are good enough to be Blanton's and put them out. They got straight from the barrel where they're not where they're doing it. This is a single barrel proof down to 94 proof. They have full, full. What would you say? Not foolproof, but why am I having barrel strength? Also, where it's just straight from the barrel, and it's barrel strength. And then they have gold, what they're putting out, which is what they feel is the better barrels. The gold was being produced and sold into Japan up until just recently. The Bland's gold was distributed in the United States. So it's really kind of cool. The whole 5,500 bottles just were distributed in Ohio for the gold. But this one is a marketing genius. Pretty much anybody who doesn't know anything about whiskey wants Blanton's. Blanton's, in my opinion, is a good but average bourbon. It's $69 a bottle when you buy it MSRP. I think it's more. I would rather have Taylor at $49.99, so it's probably more like $50. But what you're getting off this is you're getting the topper, and you're getting. And one of the things is that it's a single barrel, so you can have hit or miss barrels on this. So the reason why they get you keep coming back is you got these different toppers, and then eventually, if you look behind me, I think I can show, but you could get the gist on the main podcast. But what I got back here is the stave with all the toppers. Once you complete it, you send it into Buffalo Trace. They'll take it, put it on a stave, and send it back to you. And they ship it to you, so it just shows back up in a stave mounted with the, I believe, I want to say 8 stages, but it basically spells out Blanton's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stages of the Kentucky Bourbon or the Kentucky Derby. So it's really a kind of a cool thing. They have a one that's out, but overall, it's the marketing that makes this a $65 bottle, opposed to the E.H. Taylor, which is in a straight bottle, and it's only $39.99. But the last thing I got to say is they've marketed it to the point where everybody wants it. I've had friends who's that, how can I say this? Wives of friends ask me to get bottles of Blanton's for their husbands because that's what they want. They don't know what they want. This isn't something, but it's something that the average bourbon drinker has been convinced this is what they need to get when they start drinking whiskey. And so this marketing, you overpay because not only do you have the topper to keep you coming back all the time, but they've marketed it to and put it in a bottle, and they've got it so that people who don't know a huge amount of whiskey, they want it. So the general public, when they go looking in line and waiting in line, they want Blanton's. You talk to any liquor store owner, they're like, got any Blanton's? Everybody's always asking if you got Blanton's because there's just not enough to go around, but it's distributed pretty equally throughout the United States. Everywhere gets it. It's one of the places where they get enough out, but it's not always there. It's similar to what happens with the Bookers. So once again, let's review real quick. So you're going to pay for something that's bottled, and then put in and saved, similar to what happens with a baseball card. You're going to pay for that. You're not going to pay the original price of that whiskey from 1947. If someone saved whiskey and it's still good from 1947, what's that worth of you? You're drinking whiskey. You're drinking whiskey from 1947. You're drinking history. Think about that. So that's one of the cool things. So that's where you pay a little bit more for your whiskey. You're going to pay for high-end limited releases in really cool packaging. I mean, the box isn't cheap. It's designed, it's marketed. You got a display case. Plus, you're talking about Fred and Freddie coming up with a batch of Kentucky Straight bourbon whiskey that they both like, and they put their name on it, and it's a limited release. It's not going to be, this batch will not be released again. So you've basically bought history in a really good presentation. It's going to cost you a little bit more. I don't believe that the whiskey in the bottle is worth as much more as all the packaging and then the limited availability. Just remember, everybody, a lot of times you're paying for the right to be able to drink something that nobody else can drink. And so it's been limited so much that, you've just bought into a club of, sharing with your friends. I mean, it's something that makes you feel good. I mean, if you're out there and you get this limited bottle and it's your son's wedding and you open this up and you share it with him and his friends, it's something special. So that's the kind of thing that you would share on that type of thing. Then also, this has been aged for 15 years, and that's the other thing that you're going to say. Aging in a barrel. When you're talking about aging in the barrel, you're talking about 15 years plus or 18 years. That's 18 years in a barrel. We're talking about, your kid was born and now he can drink. That's how long it was in a barrel. It costs money to do that. It's not cheap. It's storage space, picking out the right barrels to age. I mean, you got to make sure that's all skill to get to something in a bourbon in a barrel for 18 years and make it taste good when it comes out. It's not something that just comes. So you're going to pay for that. So you're going to also pay for availability, current availability, similar to what this is. It's like if they're not producing enough for everybody to have, we all want something that we can't have. Again, there you go, the Windex kind of thing. Now, you're gonna, if you can't have it and we want it, you're gonna pay more, and then that's where the competition comes in, which allows that secondary market to go up because people want it. The more they want it, they're trying to sell it, and if it keeps going away and they don't have it, and people are like, oh, I would have paid more for that. And next time they're going to pay more. Then you're going to pay for exclusivity. A release straight up. It didn't have the package. It's not aged for 15 years, but it's a special batch released on one day from the distillery, and it sold out. I mean, it's kind of cool. They had enough bottles that day for anybody waiting in line. But there wasn't any left. Then, by the next Friday, not one place had any left. And if you got your bottle, you got your bottle. And so it was kind of cool to get that bottle. Then you're going to pay for gimmicks to keep you coming back. And then you sometimes have to pay for marketing of the perception everybody wants it. It's not rare, but everybody wants it, and because everybody wants it, there's just the availability goes down. I mean, it's just this one. I always feel that I've been able to get it anytime I want. People love it on tastings. I buy it for the tastings, and it's a really cool product. So that's what you're going by, and then the last but not least. You're paying for that Dusty. One that in 1994 Booker's had made. You have the right batch, and you're paying for a really delicious bourbon of a time period. That 1953 Satchel Paige. This was 1953. This is 1994. Booker is still alive. This is his batch. This is his, it's just becoming what it's becoming at this point. And it's nowhere else are they doing a non-chill filtered, straight into the barrel. They're not filtering. It stays cloudy. I mean, there's barrel chips in it. Nowhere else, no one else was doing it. Just like initially no one else was doing single barrels when Elmer T. Lee came up with Blanton's. But when Blanton's, for a long time, it was not bought into. People didn't know what it was. They didn't know what a single barrel was, and they kind of stayed out of it. But the same thing with Booker's. I mean, Booker's popularity, just as of recently, has just kind of skyrocketed. So that's what we're looking at there. So pricing, let's just cover the last part of the secondary market. Just remember, you're not paying, in most cases of everything I just talked about, you're paying for better bourbon in a lot of cases, but you're not paying that price between $20, $18.99 for Jim Beam, and $225 for let's see, $224 or $225 for the Lineage. It's not that much better, but it's packaged, it's older, and it is better, but it's limited. If you limited Jim Beam and you just said Jim Beam is being canceled next week, I guarantee you everybody would run out to get their bottles of Jim Beam because they're not going to be able to get it again. Once again, we want what we can't have, and they've spent a lifetime as collectibles. Now, I'm going to tell you, the transfer for me was baseball cards and wacky packages. The new generation buys into this also, and it's Pokemon cards. This is similar to Pokemon cards. You are collecting. Not only did they give it to whatever, but you collected different things, and it was a game, and you got different pieces and everything. This is the same thing. I mean, you're just getting different Pokemon. This could be Charmander. I mean, all I'm saying is they capitalize on what we love. So when I get into bourbon, that's one thing. I love to drink good bourbon. There's a lot of good bourbon. I taste a lot of good bourbon. Now, when you get into the craft distillers, that's a whole thing. That's like minor leagues. So did you ever go to a Major League Baseball game up and you go wherever and you got all the Major League kind of bells and whistles and everything? But personally, what's going on in the field, a lot of times it's all big. And, you know, there's not a lot of extra things. There's maybe some races happening or whatever. But when you go to a minor league game, there's so much more happening at a minor league game. They got to draw you in away from the big guys saying, I've got a product. These people could be big someday. They're not yet, but come see them before they get big. That's what a craft distiller is. They're producing. Now, some of them can produce, they're just like I said, they can produce really good whiskey, but not on the level of their local. The locals find it, and then it doesn't expand out to the national market until they gain some steam. But as they keep expanding out, they gotta grow. And when you grow, that means you need more equipment. You need bigger stills. And it's not the same as when you're little. I mean, you could eventually become one of the big guys, but when you're little, you've got not the pressure. You don't have to have all, you know, you don't have the same strains and pressure to produce the whiskey that someone else. All the stress comes from different areas. When you're producing, for instance, for Jim Beam, they're producing, they know how much they're producing. They know what they're trying to meet. They know what they got. They've got it all saved up and it's been made. When you're a craft distiller, you're making it and you're starting to go, and you've sold out of all of what you produced 2 years ago, and you're like, it's starting to dwindle, and you're like, well, I got to produce up my production, but you've got that gap. So meeting demand is the hard part, and organizing to be able to supply to distributors and whatnot. So they don't produce as much. So there's a lot of times where their range, and a really good craft distiller has a range between, I would say, $55 and $70 consistently, just based off of cost, so that they can stay alive. I know they would, a lot of times they would say this is their $40 bourbon, but they don't have a choice on what they sell it for. They don't have the availability of the barrels. They don't have the availability of the glass like the big people do. They have to work in different areas. It's a whole different ballgame. And a lot of times they're producing on pot stills instead of column stills. So they're doing batches and they're doing really good whiskey. So there's a whole evolution of a craft distiller, but it still comes down to a good distiller producing good white dog, putting it into barrels and aging it properly. Produces some damn good whiskey. And then they have, at craft distilleries, the ability to experiment and then put that out on their floor at their distillery. Where the big guys, they really don't have that. They can experiment, but what's left over, I mean, what they're doing, they're at such a huge volume that they got to pick and choose what they're actually going to bring to market so that they can meet the market where the craft distillery doesn't have to. So what you're paying for, and I'm almost finished here, is we'll review. You're paying not sometimes you're paying for really, really good whiskey as far as taste, but usually, in my opinion, like with Pappy Van Winkle, there's and if you get it at MSRP, it's a 90. The 12-year is a $99 bottle, and the 15-year, in my opinion, I'd pay $129 all day. Secondary, when you're talking about 1,200, 1,500, I don't got that kind of money. I don't pay that, but honestly, for one, it's the ultimate of the card that I want, that I'm looking for. And so what will I do is the question. I just keep waiting for it to come to me. Now, Super Nash, he's gotten more than enough Pappy for me to we've had pours at bars. He's shared bottles with me, but that ever elusive 15, 20, and 23-year bottles, I've not, the 15 I've had pours at bars, but I've not had, a pour with someone at a bottle. So, that's like the ultimate of all ultimate bourbons because of everybody wants it because it's cool. You can't get it, but it's also really, really good. And then you're going to pay for how long something sits in a barrel. I mean, it's a no-brainer. And then you also will pay one more time for packaging. So, if you just buy, I remember the first time I bought Booker's, and I had been looking at it, and it was, I believe, $79.99, and I was like, that's a lot for me because I really wasn't into spending that kind of money on whiskey yet.